ภัยแล้งพายุฝนรุนแรงน้ำท่วมคลื่นความร้อนพืชผลการเกษตรเสียหายการระบาดของโรคภัยปรากฏการณ์ภูมิอากาศเปลี่ยนแปลงขั้นรุนแรงเหล่านี้เป็นเพียงเครื่องเตือนจากผลที่เกิดจากการกระทำของมนุษย์การเปลี่ยนแปลงรูปแบบการดำเนินชีวิตของมนุษย์ที่เน้นไปในแนวทางบริโภคนิยมการใช้พลังงานฟอสซิลอย่างมากมายต่อเนื่องการรุกล้ำพื้นที่ป่าไม้รวมทั้งแนวทางการเกษตรเชิงเดี่ยวเพื่อการผลิตจำนวนมากส่งผลร้ายต่อระบบนิเวศวิทยาในพื้นที่ต่างๆและนำมนุษย์ไปสู่วิกฤตทางระบบนิเวศที่ส่งผลต่อทุกชีวิตบนโลก
The conference has come up because of two or several more reasons. One is that increase of the carbon gas emissions and the increase of climate change globally all over the world. Every year, the United Nations gives out the rate of carbon emissions, and we see that it's rising every year. This year was also the meeting of the 2014 meeting of the United Nations, where climate change was a main topic of discussion, where two big countries, China and America, have agreed to reduce carbon emissions, but they've only agreed but not definitely agreed on what levels of they're going to reduce the carbon emissions. The third is that Asia is rising. India, China, Southeast Asia, we here in Thailand are becoming very better economically developed, and we are going at a better economic growth while Europe is in a crisis. So the climate change is also a responsibility for the Thai people, for the Asian people. Are we going to go the same way for growth as others did? Because for here in Thailand, we have Buddhism, we have Islam, we have Asian culture, and our values towards nature are different. So how do we manage growth and the challenge of climate change is what led me to raise this conference, to bring experts in science, in technology, in ethics, to come and give us discussion this topic together so that we can at least tell the people of how to go about it.
รายการเล็กๆเปลี่ยนโลกขอนำเสนอภาพบางส่วนจากการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติเรื่องจริยธรรมการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศและวิกฤตด้านพลังงานจัดขึ้นโดยความร่วมมือของวิทยาลัยศาสนศึกษาและคณะสิ่งแวดล้อมและทรัพยากรศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลโดยในช่วงนี้เป็นการปาฐกถาพิเศษในเรื่องผลกระทบของการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศของโลกต่อวิกฤตของมนุษยชาติโดยได้รับเกียรติจากดรโมฮัมเหม็ดบินกาเนมอัลอาลีอัลมาฮีดประธานและ CEO สภากาชาติกาตาร์เป็นผู้บรรยาย
So what's the factors here? We have factors coming from the climate, which is we have natural. You can see on the left, natural variability and man-made climate changes or affecting climate change. But if you see these three interactive circles, that causes the disaster risk. So on the left you got the climate events coming in, but then to have an impact, you need that exposure. Exposure means that they have to hit a place. If they hit in the sea, nobody's there, so nobody's exposed. But the more it hits where people are, the more the number of people, the more it's disaster. And then we've got the vulnerability. The vulnerability is really it's related to the socio-economical developmental dimension. This is some of the dimensions that affect people. For example, we talked about urbanization. You know, the problem of urbanization that many people come from, usually cities, where are they built historically? They build them around rivers or riverbeds. They build them on because around mountains, close to the mountains because of the valleys for agriculture, something like this. So they grow coastal lines, for trade, for fishing. So this is how they originally come about. And then with the increased number of populations, which they expect to increase from 50% of world population to 75% within 20 years or something, or 30 years. And that will impact, the number of people living there. And if you don't have a very strong control over development. Okay, in Saudi Arabia, for example, there was a flood a couple of years ago, and it really, in a wealthy country, but the development went into valleys where people for centuries and thousands of years had the common sense not to build in these because of the floods. The problem with the cities as well is, the infrastructure is not there in this kind of, you can see the cities and you can see all this shanty house cities around them, and they have no infrastructures. So there is no strong, resilient infrastructure in water or sanitation or health or even the houses themselves. So it is really a disaster. Anything happen, it's a very fragile system, this living system. So anything come in, variation or, a disaster or even less than a disaster can really impact this and can cause a lot of damage. Another one which is related to this, of course, because if we're going to have droughts or we're going to have floods or it's going to impact your livelihood, okay? And the livelihood is, food security. Can you really produce enough? And if food is not there or it's very low, then food prices will go high. If food prices will go high, we will have you will have conflicts. This is actually from the Middle East, and people don't realize that within our area, only 3% of the total area have this large number of people. And if you can see it, it's all about mountainous area or coastal areas or riverbeds and the rivers. This is where the concentration of population. This is something related to to when I talked about the food prices, for example, increased. Any changes in the life of people because of either climate change impact or even disasters, and if there is, we can see that these are in different countries, in different times, there is an increase in the food prices and there is civil unrest accompanying that, okay? So it is really about, there is kind of relationship between conflict and disasters and the predisposition to disaster. We deal with a lot of refugees, for example, in our region from Syria or something like this, and winter is coming, and our campaign today, which is in the country going on, is really warm winter, because winter becomes very, very cold and even snowing in the areas around Syria or Palestine. So really it's very important for us to address this, because here, wherever we can really manage if we are strong enough as a population or as a resilient, let's say, society, as a strong societies, communities strong. We have housing, we have heat, we have food, we have healthy. But if you are living in a tent, in a refugee camp, you really have, and this is, I just want to show the difference between if you have in a very comfortable place and very strong place to live in as a community or as an individual, and when you are a refugee, when you are, let's say, have no heat source, no good food to eat, so there is no clean water or sanitation, you are always sick. And most of these people actually, they are women, children, elderly, handicapped. They are actually vulnerable as well from the total population. They are the weak part also. So really, you have a very dangerous situation. This is why you, in a humanitarian dimension, you have to go in very quickly and to tackle it. The same thing that also war creates vulnerability. How? It destroys infrastructures, one. It destroys the ability to receive food. All the supplies or production of food or presence of clean water. It destroys governmental institution or local institution. So it is really a very strong disturbance. So vulnerability is there, as I discussed, and so any change in a disaster kind of, or even climate change, can be a severe impact on the society. Climate change and adaptation, adaptation is something to do to adapt to the change in the environment, so you really need to adjust. It could be positive and could be, the change in environment could be positive or could be negative. So you need to take advantage of the changes that the scenarios put there to take care of. So your development, take care into that, so you put them together. But they don't always match. Just to understand that they are not one thing. They are disaster risk reduction is a strategy for a shorter time. It's planned for a long time, but it is actually to tackle short time plans where adaptation takes it's for much longer dimension.
ในช่วงหน้ากลับมาพบกับการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติเรื่องจริยธรรมการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศและวิกฤตด้านพลังงานในช่วงการนำเสนอผลงานทางวิชาการที่เกี่ยวข้องกันต่อได้ในรายการเล็กๆเปลี่ยนโลกรายการเล็กๆเปลี่ยนโลกอยู่ในการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติเรื่องจริยธรรมการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศและวิกฤตด้านพลังงานซึ่งในช่วงนี้เป็นการนำเสนอการบรรยายเกี่ยวกับภาวะโลกร้อนและการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศจากวิทยากรอาจารย์ผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิและผู้เชี่ยวชาญจากนานาประเทศ
that the climate change impact will have more the climate change will cause more severe impact to the human in terms of the forest, in terms of the agriculture and the food production, food security. The water resource or water scarcity is going to be more and more of human problem. The impact on the biodiversity, coastal areas, coastal erosion, and the public health. And some pictures of the impact of climate change in Thailand, the sea level rise and the coastal erosion in the south of Thailand. All the impact, the adverse impact of climate change cause the damages or the loss and damage in human life and also cause the damage to the economic. So it has some impact for the country's development in terms of the not only the environment but to the economic and social dimensions as well. Cause of the problem, here it comes from the greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gas, when it has an imbalance or too much of the greenhouse gas, it causes global warming, as we know in the easy words. And then the global warming, and then we will have the climate change. So when we see the cause of the problem from the greenhouse gas, we have to see who emits the most and where is Thailand. The global problems will now on the left side, this is a picture that shows the greenhouse gas emissions in global share. This is the picture from the energy sector, which is the major sector of emission or the emission source of the greenhouse gas. The United States emits about 18% of the global share. China now about 19%, and India, Brazil, Japan, Germany, and Russian Federation in this group, and Canada, Mexico, Australia, Indonesia is in this group, about above 1% of the global share. Thailand is in this gray bubble. So sometimes people would think that, well, Thailand doesn't emit that much. So let the problem be handled or addressed by the major emitter. But in my opinion and many people's opinion, that's not fair. So, because for these gray bubbles, even they are emitters or the countries that emit below 1% of the global share. But accounting of the greenhouse gas emission from these countries, it takes about 24% or almost quarter of the global share already. So we have to do something.
I also like to use this old slide of mine because I feel that many people think global warming is only for the scientists and all that. And I always like to push the point that no human or ecosystem is immune to global warming. Do not think anybody is immune. It affects every living thing. And we all contribute in many ways. But of course, we are also starting to pay the cost, which will rise over time, because if the predictions of carbon concentrations keep on increasing, and many people don't realize that many of the greenhouse gases have a long residual time in the greenhouse belt. You emit now, they will be there for 20, 30 years. So even if you stop emitting now because all these are there, the effect will last for a long time. So it's not something you can switch on and off. And I think many people don't seem to get that into their heads. And of course, if you look at global warming, some people are more culpable and should act now. The point in red that I've done is to situate Malaysia within the ASEAN thing and talk in terms of per capita emissions. Malaysia is the third highest. First is Brunei, second is Singapore, Thailand is way below us. So I always hammer this point in Malaysia that globally we may not be so large. Per capita, we are quite high. I think at the moment of per capita emissions, 2010 is something like almost 9 tons per capita, which is very large. And CO2 concentrations, as we saw yesterday, have actually exceeded way below the 350 ppm level that is agreed by the scientists as the top limit, after which we may have a runaway situation. But even before 1992, scientists were warning that GHG emissions had to be reduced 80% below 1990 levels by the year 2000. And that's very interesting. I followed these negotiations. I actually attended a negotiation even before the convention was adopted. And then to find that during the convention itself, developed countries tried to use, because they didn't use the word 2000 in the convention, they said the turn of the century. They conveniently said, oh, turn of the century doesn't mean 2000. It means 2005 or 2010 even. So you find that negotiators, in my opinion, have not been really honest in that sense. They are conveniently interpreted to suit their own lack of action. And they also stated the CO2 equivalent need to be kept below 350 ppm, but as I mentioned, this has already been exceeded. I also like to emphasize that after having observed the negotiations for almost 15, 16 COPs, I've now stopped going. I've realized that when you go to these negotiations, they are not so much about science. They're more about politics. And it is inevitable in a way because it's an intergovernmental thing. Politics dominate them. There is a whole range of vested interests at stake. I used to follow the negotiations on biodiversity, and then when I could compare the two conventions, I find there more vested interest in the climate negotiations than in biodiversity itself. And these are things, those who believe they will suffer adversely from climate change impacts, like especially the people on small islands, they are pitted against those who are considered historically the largest emitter. The USA was one example. At one stage, it was a fight between the USA and the Pacific Islanders, that sort of thing. But even there is a marked north-south divide in the negotiation. Although people say, no such thing, we shouldn't talk. But realistically, there is the north-south divide. There's the OECD versus the non-OECD. There is the Annex 1 countries, which is the Annex 1 of the convention, and the non-Annex 1, which is equivalent to almost OECD and non-OECD type of countries. And even within the G77, there's a frustration. The G77 is huge in terms of voting powers. It has the biggest votes, but they are again split. Sometimes their decision is the least common denominator, which is always weak. So there is OPEC versus the rest. There is AOCs, which is the alliance of small island states, versus China, India, and Brazil. And this was very clearly illustrated in the first COP, which was held in Berlin, because there was a proposal that the first COP would discuss a protocol to have legally binding timetable and targets for developed countries for Annex 1. AOC was very clever. They drafted a protocol, but they didn't consult China, India, and Brazil. So when this thing was presented in Berlin, China, India, and Brazil within the G77 tore it to pieces. So that never got adopted. All they could agree was to come out with a mandate, what they call the Berlin Mandate, to negotiate something that 3 years later resulted in a protocol. So you find this sort of dynamics are there. We as NGOs thought the protocol should come in as soon as possible. No. Big powers don't like the Pacific Islanders, AOC's upstaging them.
We have a choice for our future. This is actually an image that came from the Earth Policy Institute some while ago, describing where we're headed depending on our choices. We know already that there's no easy path because we've procrastinated so long to actually make binding agreements about lowering carbon emissions that the future will be difficult. But we have the choice of avoiding it creating a future that's very difficult or impossible for human life on this planet. This image is just a backdrop to the slide, but some of you might recognize it as coming from the IPCC report, where it depicts the observable impacts across the globe of climate change already happening, and also the filled in icons for various things like the effect on terrestrial life, the effect on marine life, the effect on food production, water, meaning drought, flooding, melting ice on every continent. These observable impacts, the filled in icons mean a high level of impact through climate change. The open icons mean some amount of impact from climate change. So we know that things are changing. In fact, we're the first generation to really directly feel the impact of climate change. And we're the last generation to be able to do something about it. So the risks as we go forward are enormous. And this is human caused, which means we also have a responsibility to change it. What do we need to do? We need to keep 80% of the fossil fuels that we already know exist, that are already part of the reserves that fossil fuel companies and countries that operate like fossil fuel companies already have at their disposal, that they're already counting as part of their wealth. And their intention, of course, is to extract all of it and burn all of it, which will take us down this path of a 4 or 6 degree increase in average global temperature, which spells disaster. So in order to have any hope of staying within a range of warming that's going to support human life and animal life on this planet, we need to do all that we can to keep 80% of those fossil fuels in the ground. How do we do that? We have to put a price on carbon emissions and on methane emissions so that everyone is on board with using less and converting to renewable energy as quickly as possible. So what do we do? Well, if we keep 80% of the fossil fuels in the ground, which is an estimate, what we know fossil fuel companies have already at their disposal, adds up to about $28 trillion. If we keep 80% of that in the ground, that's a $20 trillion write-off for the fossil fuel companies. You can imagine that it's difficult to pry their fingers off of that, and they want to very much extract it all, sell it all, and have us burn it all. Also, in America these days, and I think in a number of other places around the world, the money that's coming from this industry is equating to political power. So as you may or may not know, the money, the wealth in America and in around the world is concentrated more now in the hands of a very few than it has been for a very long time. So we've got enormous amounts of wealth in the hands of a few. The fossil fuel industry makes more money than any industry in all of human history. And that money is being translated into political power, which in the system in America was never intended to be the case. Political power is supposed to be equally distributed among the citizens. So one thing that's causing us to be slow to make these changes is that there's a lot of confusion being generated, again, by the, you might call them power elite, those who have a great deal of money and control of the media, mass media, and are using all their resources to introduce doubt and confusion about climate change. So you might know we have actual climate deniers, even high level in our government. And they've associated climate change with political lines and religious lines, which, of course, the problem of climate change should never be a political issue or a religious issue, because the threat is one of survival to all of us. So to think that somehow supporting big business and having its way to continue to pollute without taking responsibility for that pollution, continuing to rake in profits without having to put out any kind of compensation for the damage that's done, and also to be slow or even block all possible entry into creating a renewable energy future, is something that should not be connected to one's political beliefs or one's religious beliefs. So we need to educate, as we've heard earlier, and to really face the reality of what's happening.
You see, nature does not change. Thamachan mai pian, as we say in Thai. But man has to change. Manut tong pian tuk wela. Every time they have to change. And technology is changing, and technology is affecting how we look at nature, how we use nature. We are in the age where for growth we destroy Thamachan. We destroy nature for our own personal need. As Prabhupada say, it's always about me and mine. I want for me, but we don't think about the nature. Nature suffers silently. Nature does not complain. But nature complains when? When we have tsunami, when we have earthquake. Even in Chiang Mai now we have earthquake. In Chiang Rai we have earthquake. Before we don't have that. We in Thailand are also abusing nature. And Buddhism teaches a lot of respect for nature. Among all the religions of the world, Buddhism respects ecology most importantly than any other religion, as we know. So if Thai people is a responsibility as Buddhist people of the world, that they can show to the world how Buddhism respects nature, because don't go for growth without asking the question. So Thai people have a question, how much electricity they are using, how much carbon they are emitting. Is growth is good, economic development is good, Thailand should progress, but how?
รายการเล็กๆเปลี่ยนโลกกลับมาร่วมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งในการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติเรื่องจริยธรรมการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศและวิกฤตด้านพลังงานกันต่อโดยในช่วงนี้ทางรายการได้รับเกียรติจากศาสตราจารย์ดร. มัลคอม วินสันสมาชิก Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change และผู้รับรางวัลโนเบลร่วมสาขาสันติภาพปี 2007 ให้สัมภาษณ์แก่ทางรายการ
I think we have to look at energy, and because most of our current energy is fossil based, and so with the emissions from fossil fuels, we have to be concerned about the type of energy we're using and the amount of energy that we're using. So we need to be very conscious of that, and we need to look at ways either to reduce the amount of energy or indeed to make that energy cleaner so that we have a more sustainable future. What we need to be doing is I think we need to accept that people want energy, people need energy, people deserve energy as a means of improving their standard of living. What we have to do though is to take that energy and clean it to the extent possible. That may be using renewable energy systems, So hydroelectricity, bioenergy, wind power, and so on. But personally, I do not see us changing entirely to a renewable energy system, that we are going to continue to use fossil fuels for at least the next 5 or 6 decades. So what we need to make sure is that when we use that fossil energy, we do it cleanly. And I think we also need to be conscious of the fact that different energy forms have different uses. And so we need to make best use of the energy types we have. So, for example, natural gas is very good for distribution. Electricity is very good for distribution. But is natural gas necessarily the best fuel to use for producing electricity? Can we use other forms of fuel, but use them in a clean manner? So I think we need to be looking at our resources and effective use of our resources, as well as the effective use of technology. And when you're a country like Thailand that's very heavily dependent on imported energy, it's important to know where that energy is coming from and how stable that supply is. Disruptions can have serious health and economic issues. Loss of energy to hospitals can be quite serious. Loss of energy into the information industry can be serious. So we need to make sure that there's a reliability of supply. So the potential is certainly there for Thailand to look at its indigenous resources. So I think coal has a role in Thailand, but coal used in a clean manner. So we have the technology, we have the expertise globally. There's expertise in Thailand in the whole area of clean coal or emissions capture from coal. And if we capture the CO2, not only do we do that, but we eliminate other emissions as well. So I think we can look at sources of energy that people have always called dirty and turn those into relatively clean sources of energy and utilize those both for the economy and for a reliability of supply.
So then like talk about why we want to have CO2 capture and utilization in China. We do so much work in there. First, let's look at the data in 2010. That's a little bit old, but we have some upgraded data, not make it like this list. So I use this data. The two biggest countries in terms of the CO2 emission in the world, that's China and the USA. So in China, that's 8 billion tons CO2 emission each year. That's quite huge. But if in terms of the population for each of them, that's not big. Right? Here we said the per person CO2 emission, that's only 4.9 tons CO2 per person per year. But for USA, that's bigger. 17.6 USA. But the total CO2 emission, China is the #1 in the world. So this is why the government pays so much attention to how to control the CO2 emission. Some other countries, like Canada, said the average CO2 emission is relatively high. That's around 14 tons per year per person. We can say, as we can understand, if the more rich country, then the average person CO2 emission will be higher than the poor countries, like this one. And also I get some data that what is the main CO2 emissions resources. Around 70% of energy from the form of coal in China. So most of CO2 emission came from the coal resources. Some data in 2008, China, we have only 7 billion tons CO2 emission. That's 23% of the whole the world CO2 emission. And in that time, the USA is like this one. In Thailand, I have the data in 2008, I get it. That's very little, only 1% of CO2 to the world. And Malaysia, I went to there to had a presentation last year. So that's only 0.7% in that year, the data of the world CO2 emissions. So, but in 2010, it's getting worse in China. The 3 billion tons CO2 per year, that's around 1/4 of the world CO2 emission. So the increase very fast, as we can see from this figure. So it's very urgent for us to create some new projects to deal with CO2 emission reduction. So as I just mentioned, the mainly CO2 emission from the coal. So when we use the coal to generate the electricity, each kilowatt hour electricity will generate around 1 kilogram CO2, close to 1, like 0.8 and 0.9 something. So that's a huge amount of CO2, each kilogram hours electricity. If we use other resources, another fossil fuel, that's a little bit lower. And for the natural gas, it's much more lower. This figure is for a little bit of data. When I was mid-high school, I learned some knowledge from the chemistry. In that time, the teacher told us the CO2 concentration in the air will constantly set around 200 ppm. But we don't know in that time the CO2 concentration will increase so fast. So currently it is around 400 ppm in the air. As Malcolm also mentioned yesterday, right? That's increased very fast. So coal is still a very important resource. The energy resources right now there because so many important reasons. So it is a very important reliability resources of energy. And also so many reasons we can see here. However, we have to understand that when we use coal, will bring us a lot of pollutions. Here we just say 42% of CO2 emission in the world come from the coal. And also not only CO2 emission, the coal will generate the pollution like the NOx and the SOx and everything else. Lots of others. So for the clean coal technology is so important if we have to use coal as the coal resource, the energy resources. And then for the CCUS in China, the very simple introduction. So where and how to capture CO2 we did. So we capture CO2 from the coal chemical plants that after the gasification and also we capture CO2 from the fossil fuel combustion. Here we said about the coal, natural gas, and oil. And then what to do for the CO2 we captured? Think about how to utilize it. The enhanced oil recovery and also enhance the methyl recovery. In Thailand, we have some project to do that. And another thing is all the chemical things people are thinking about from chemical to chemicals. Use the CO2 is one of the chemicals and makes the new chemicals that will be useful in the market. The current way maybe just restore it, make it to the underground. So when we talk about the different kind of CO2, the resources, and then how to capture it, this is the same as the past combustion CO2 capture. One is for the coal power plant, another one for natural gas combustion system. So when we talk about the result, this is the feasibility study result. So for 1 million tons CO2 capture per year. So as we can see the result, the product cost. So for the coal plant, it is around $35 per ton CO2. But for the natural gas plant, it is relatively high, because the concentration of the flue gas from after the natural gas combustion is very lower. So it needs a lot of big equipment than the coal power plant. And this high operation cost. And also the capital cost. And then talk about CO2 utilization in coal chemical plant. So CO2 enhanced oil recovery support the EOR. So the CO2 we captured. Normally we have the big tank to store some of CO2 in the oil field, and then we use the bumpers, increase the pressure of the CO2, make it close to the, we can say the supercritical statement, supercritical CO2, or some of the certification, the liquid CO2, put it underground. When the CO2 go more under the ground, and the CO2 and the oil will work together by somewhere, and then move to another where the CO2 and the oil can get out together. And then we separate the oil and the CO2. The first few months or sometimes we don't need have to get CO2 recovered, because in that time most of our CO2 was stored in underground. After a while, maybe a year or 2 years later, the CO2, part of the CO2 will come out with the oil and the gas. So we have to develop some technology to recycle CO2. It means purify this part of CO2 and reject it again. So this is also one of the projects we are dealing with. But it depends on the situation, how concentrated of the CO2 get out from here. This is you are the whole process. CO2 enhance oil recovery.
Good things do not happen of their own accord. We have to make them happen. That means from now to the future, make whatever you think to make the world better. The green university, green campus, green beer, green house, green home, whatever. Not only saying something, but make it reality, active it, do it like this. This is the study room for the better world environment. This is the faculty. This is not our faculty, but we make a room outside and make it simple. Do it appropriate with appropriate technology ways of life. We teach Earth system dynamics. Teach them how the Earth system is now dynamic, how to plan it like a dynamic system. Teach people how to love nature, but don't say, please love nature. No, they don't love. They still throw the waste, through the garbage into the water, into the canal. But if we take them to see how beautiful of the nature, they will change their mind. Oh, this is the nature. They don't know because they always in Bangkok. It's different. This is a 4-day, 3 nights round trip of the master degree student. And we change every place to stay, and then we tell them what is going on with the natural room, classroom like this. We give them an example how to live with nature. Do it, not only say it, do it now. Who is he? This is our president of Mahidol University, sitting down in the Khao Yai National Park, stay overnight, eating some food like that in Thai style, and sharing the food, and then teach them how to love the nature, and teach them overnight, and see how they can change.
จะเห็นได้ว่าการตอบสนองต่อปัญหาดังกล่าวนี้จำเป็นที่จะต้องอาศัยความเข้าใจผสมผสานหลักจริยธรรมส่งเสริมให้มีการกระตุ้นให้เกิดจิตสำนึกในการอนุรักษ์พลังงานและทรัพยากรของประชาชนอยู่เสมอและหลอมรวมแนวทางการอนุรักษ์ทรัพยากรเข้ากับระบบทางเศรษฐกิจในท้ายสุดของการประชุมครั้งนี้เป็นการกล่าวสรุปจากรองศาสตราจารย์ดร.กัมปนาท ภักดีกุลคณบดีคณะสิ่งแวดล้อมและทรัพยากรศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลเกี่ยวกับวิสัยทัศน์และแนวทางในอนาคต
ครับการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศโลกนี้นะครับมีการพูดคุยกันมาในโลกเราเนี่ยระยะหนึ่งแล้วนะครับเป็นเวลา 10-20 ปีมานี้ที่จริงแล้วมีคนพูดก่อนหน้านี้นะครับ บางคนก็ไม่เชื่อว่ามันเป็นเรื่องของการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศบอกว่าคิดว่ามันเป็นเรื่องของทั่วไปฝนตกแดดออกน้ำท่วมนะฮะแต่ว่าไอ้ความถี่ที่มันมีมากขึ้นนะครับความถี่ของการเกิดฝนความถี่ของการเกิดความแห้งแล้งนะครับความถี่ของการเกิดความหนาวเย็นนะมันมี2คำหลักๆเราพูดเรื่องของความแปรปรวนของภูมิอากาศกับการเปลี่ยนแปลงของสภาพภูมิอากาศเพราะฉะนั้นสิ่งนี้เกิดขึ้นแล้วแน่นอนไม่ว่าจะแก้ไขด้วยวิธีอะไรขณะนี้เรากำลังผจญกับโลกของการเปลี่ยนแปลงทางด้านสภาพภูมิอากาศและเราจะต้องช่วยกันแก้ไขช่วยกันลดภาวะโลกร้อนนะให้ได้ในกิจกรรมต่างๆเพราะฉะนั้นการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศจะส่งผลโดยตรงกับมนุษย์เราเหมือนเราขึ้นอยู่บนยานอวกาศของโลกเหมือนโลกใบนี้เป็นโลกของเหมือนยานอวกาศโลกนี้เปรียบเสมือนยานอวกาศมนุษย์เปรียบเสมือนมนุษย์อวกาศนะมนุษย์ที่ขับยานอวกาศนักบินอวกาศที่ขับยานโลกนี้อยู่กินใช้ทรัพยากรแล้วก็ได้รับผลกระทบจากการเปลี่ยนแปลงจากการใช้ทรัพยากรมากเกินไปเพราะฉะนั้นผลกระทบที่มันเกิดขึ้นแล้วเนี่ยถ้าเรายังไม่เปลี่ยนแปลงพฤติกรรมนะครับสภาพแล้งจัดจะเกิดขึ้นบ่อยหนาวจัดจะเกิดขึ้นบ่อยนะครับฝนตกหนักนะตกท่วมตกในหน้าที่ไม่ควรจะตกหรือว่าแล้งในหน้าที่ไม่ควรจะแล้งนะครับเวียนกันเข้ามามากมายยิ่งขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นการจัดการก็จะทำได้ยากขึ้นนะครับการจัดการสภาพแวดล้อมต่างๆเนี่ยนะเพราะว่าเมื่อมันเกิดขึ้นมาแล้วเราบอกเราไม่หยุดมันเราไม่หยุดนะเรายังใช้ไฟฟ้าเหมือนเดิมใช้กระดาษเหมือนเดิมเรายังไม่มีโครงการใหม่ๆเข้ามาอย่างเช่นปัจจุบันนี้เรามีโครงการที่ต่อสู้กับเรื่องพวกนี้อยู่เช่นโครงการ paperless นะครับใช้กระดาษให้น้อยที่สุดหรือไม่ใช้เลยนะครับการประชุม green meeting นะครับการประชุมโดยไม่ใช้กระดาษนะครับแต่ใช้สไลด์ขึ้นไปให้ดูกันลักษณะอย่างนี้ก็จะช่วยได้หรือว่าเป็นนโยบายเรื่องเกี่ยวกับ green university นะครับgreen meeting green office นะครับเรื่องเหล่านี้แหละครับจะช่วยผลักดันถ้าเราลดหรือช่วยลดลดปัญหาภาวะที่จะใช้ทรัพยากรก็จะช่วยลดปัญหาโลกร้อนได้ส่วนหนึ่งนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นพฤติกรรมที่เราทำอยู่เนี่ย daily life ของเราเนี่ยนะพฤติกรรมในชีวิตประจำวันเราบอกเราลองคิดดูซิว่าเราทำอะไรบ้างวันหนึ่งเรายังใช้สั่งน้ำขวดน้ำพลาสติกอยู่หรือเปล่าครับเรายังฟุ่มเฟือยต่อการใช้ทรัพยากรนะครับอย่างสุรุ่ยสุร่ายหรือเปล่านะครับเรายังรับประทานอาหารเหลือใช้เหลือทิ้งหรือเปล่าหรือเอาไปทำอย่างอื่นไหมเรามีการจัดการขยะไหมนะครับหรือว่าเราดื่มน้ำเราเปิดน้ำเราใช้น้ำเนี่ยเราใช้อย่างใคร่ควรหรือเปล่าหรือว่าเรายังใช้แบบที่เราคิดว่าอยากจะใช้รวมถึงซื้อสินค้าต่างๆที่เป็น Product ที่เราอยากจะซื้อก็ซื้อโดยที่เราไม่คิดว่าทำไมเราไม่รู้เรื่องของ Green Products เรื่องของ Product ที่มันช่วยลดโลกร้อนหรือว่าเราไปพักไปเที่ยวไปพักโรงแรมทำไมเราไปพักโรงแรมที่ยังปล่อยน้ำเสียลงแม่น้ำโรงแรมที่มีการบำบัดน้ำเสียดีกว่าไหมที่เราจะไปอยู่ช่วยได้เรื่องพวกนี้เป็นเรื่องที่เราสามารถทำได้โดยทันทีโดยไม่ต้องรอคนอื่น
ท่านผู้ชมที่สนใจสามารถสอบถามข้อมูลเพิ่มเติมเกี่ยวกับการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติเรื่องจริยธรรมการเปลี่ยนแปลงสภาพภูมิอากาศและวิกฤตด้านพลังงานได้ที่วิทยาลัยศาสนศึกษามหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลหมายเลขโทรศัพท์02-800-2630-39 หรือทางเว็บไซต์ www.crs.mahidol.ac.th